Welcome to the BXG podcast, a BXG production. I'm one of your hosts, going straight up and down tonight. One of your hosts, the Alpha Donut guy, Brent Beswick, alongside my co-host, Gregory T. Filson, and the T is for too hot to handle. Greg.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is filmed in front of a live studio audience. I don't think people realize that, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, Greg, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay. But I do have a small anybody listening to this, you know, it's later in the week. So you're probably thinking, okay, we've heard about this enough, but we're recording on a Monday. So this is the day after the conference championship games in the NFL.
Right.
And I'm I like sports. I watch sports. And so I have two things. I'm going to go into the main one and then my side one. My main one is the referees in the NFL are really bad at their job. Very, very bad at their job. And we complain a lot about, you know, different refs in other sports. And there was a whole thing with LeBron getting fouled, and he definitely got fouled, and that was really bad. And I get that on Saturday night against the Celtics. But the refs on Sunday, these are supposed to be an all-star crew of refs. And that Eagles game with the 49ers, ultimately that didn't really matter because of what had happened to Brock Purdy. And there were some bad reffing things in there, but that ultimately didn't matter. They literally couldn't have a quarterback throw a football. So on that side, but that Bengals-Chiefs game, that was awful. And I'm not going to go into the whole thing. I mean, the push of Mahomes going out of bounds, that is called 100 out of 100 times against a quarterback. Maybe not a running back, maybe not a wide receiver, but if it's a quarterback, especially somebody with a name like Pat Mahomes, and if it was Joe Burrow on the other side, that's still going to be called a late hit. But there were some blocks in the back. I heard a joke that, you know, the Chiefs got about 10 fifth down plays in that game. So I have two things on that. My number one thing is, if we as actual people were as bad at our jobs as NFL refs, we would not be a part of an all-star crew. We would be fired the next day. That was awful. And someone broke down like all the calls they missed, and it was, you know, a good amount of calls. The other thing I want to say on that end is, you and I have gone on that our favorite sport in general is baseball. In general, like, I love college football as my favorite sport to watch as like one condensed thing, but I've been to a minor league baseball game many times in my life with you, a few times, and I've been to a major league baseball game. I've gone to high school baseball games. I went to a baseball game in Alaska, you know, that was like these college kids, all these different things. I love baseball. And people complain about baseball. But at the end of the day, that ball either gets past the infield or it doesn't. And the balls and strikes matter a lot, but a ball and a strike has never mattered as much as faulty calls in the NFL, especially in a championship game. And this is the beauty of baseball. And if you want to have robotic umps at the end of the day, you can. But either that ball goes over the fence or it doesn't. If they want to replay it, they can double check, and it takes 30 seconds. There are times during the NFL game yesterday where as someone who loves just watching football, I don't care. I am at that point in my life where I got tired of it. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So my big thing there is baseball is still the least compromised game based on officiating. Yes, balls and strikes, but once you figure out the balls and strikes of that umpire, that's how a pitcher will pitch, and that's how batters look at it. And it might take an inning or two, or if it's a umpire that we've known for a lot of years, you just know that they're a shitty umpire towards the pitcher or a shitty umpire towards the hitter. We just know that. My other thing, and I want to say this as this is not a slight to other fans who maybe don't do this, but I just see this a lot because of the area we grew up. And I'm not saying all the fans are like this. I'm just saying this is the generalization that I have realized. And you say generalization where you try not to make it, but I've noticed it a lot. Where we grew up, are the main fan of the football teams are the Steelers fans, right? Even though we live in the central area between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, we still live in Western Pennsylvania. There you go. And neither of us are Steelers fans. I'm a Lions fan. You're a Panthers fan. We like cats.
Yeah.
Over
Not the musical.
Workers. Yeah, no.
Not the musical.
No, I don't like it. No, I don't like that. I want the butthole cut of that out the TV of the movie one. That was the whole thing. But anyhow, I digress. Yeah. So the thing that I noticed is when I'm watching football during the regular season, and I see the people that I know that are Steelers fans, boy, they are just every single play, everything. And if it's a team they hate, it's every single play with that team that they hate. And F this, screw that. You're trying to screw the Steelers. But once the Steelers are out of something, I'm not sure they realize that football is continually being played.
Some do.
And it's one of the more, I'm saying the majority, not all of them, but the majority of people that I know that are Steelers fans, not all of them, there's a few that I know are just football fans. There were people yesterday, and I'm not kidding you, there were Steelers fans from various walks. I went to school in Pittsburgh. I knew Steelers fans. Obviously, people we knew and grew up with were Steelers fans. I literally had someone yesterday post a thing saying, "Not sure what I'm doing today." And I'm like, I thought you liked football. And this is one of those things where, like, I don't care if you're another fan, like if you as a Panthers fan, Brent, but you are not actively tweeting, you're not actively doing a thing where you're just up and down with every single thing or against other teams. You're a Panthers fan. That's awesome. You root for them to win. That is perfectly fine. But the Steelers fans are so adamant about everything where they think they just encapsulate football. But once the season's over, they don't even know that football still exists. And it annoys the hell out of me. And I say this because I am a Detroit Lions fan. They're not a good franchise.
Right.
Yet I continue to watch football. I could easily stop and move on with my life. But I enjoy the product of seeing football on the field. And like, I pick a rooting interest. I've rooted for Tom Brady, obviously, in the past. And because I needed something to root for. But you can pick anyone you want. You don't have, there's always that thing. It's like to just stop your day there after all season telling me that you're the biggest fucking football fan in the world because you like the Steelers is just, it boggles my mind. And to literally see someone post, what am I going to do today? There's nothing on. It's like, just don't post that, number one. And it just drives me absolutely nuts because you can't be so hardcore about something and then literally the second it drops off, you're just out. I just don't think that's fair to anything. It tells me right then and there that you're not really a football fan. You're more of kind of like, I like this because it's the cool thing to like. It honestly would be like this. If the next day, when Britney Spears stopped making pop music, back when she went crazy, whatever you want to say, I never think that. Britney stan my entire life. When she stopped making music, be like, I'm done with pop music. Well, it's like, no, because I liked pop music before Britney Spears, and I obviously like pop music now. I don't get this, and I want someone to explain it to me. This is not a shot at you. Like I said, you're not like a Panthers fan that goes on there and just says F to everything all the time. You like the Panthers, you root for them, that's cool. I think that's reasonably fine. And if you don't care about the playoffs after that, or you do, that is totally cool. But to just be like, I'm done with it, and I'm a huge, I'm in that tier where I will watch most sports at any time. And it really, for whatever reason, it really bugged me this weekend because I thought we had two really great games up to it. And then obviously what happened kind of took away some of the thing from the Eagles 49ers game. but it really bugged me. And you can respond or you can't, Brent. I don't want you to feel like you're put under this, but that just honestly made me feel very weird as a sports fan to see people complain about something like sports when all season for 18 weeks, all I heard about from tweets or Instagram was how big of a Steelers fan they were. And then football was just done to them. And we move on. Anything from you on any end? Do you have any explanation? You're in that country now. I don't have any particular thing like that where actual people care about the Steelers. Nothing? Good. I like all this. Brenton's got a new toy, so this is what we have now. And I like this. Okay, good. I just wanted to get that out because
no, I don't have time.
This is what I will say. No, you watch the World Series though.
No.
You don't watch the World Series?
Mm-mm.
I feel like you do. We've talked about the World Series before.
No, I don't watch the World Series unless Cleveland's in it.
So you're like a Steelers fan.
Well, no, I'm not. It's okay.
You're not someone that shoves it down people's throat, though. You're someone that doesn't shove it down people's throat.
Well, I think that I actually do think you're kind of confusing. Like I'm a Steelers fan versus I'm a football fan, or I'm a Panthers fan versus I'm a football fan. I like the Panthers. I think I watched 2 games this season because they're not good, and I don't have time. It's different, and this is what you don't understand, and maybe someday you will, is it's different when you have kids.
No, I get
and
that.
Like you just don't have time. And so, the same thing with like you said, watching the World Series is like, I'm a baseball fan, but once my team's out, then I'm out. The only thing that I would say that I am a sports fan of, and I will watch things outside of my team is the NBA. I watch probably at least part of every night, pretty much. I'll watch at least like a quarter or so of whatever game is on. But I don't. My thing is like, and this is to just kind of argue your point, is you have people who are Steeler fans, and it's like, okay, or whatever team. I mean, we just use the Steelers because it's
this is what I see the most of.
Sure. And it's like, oh, I'm a Steelers fan, bitch and complain about the Steelers and, blah, 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 blah. But I think plenty of people are just like, well, my team's out. So instead of sitting around watching other teams, I might as well, use my Sunday afternoon for something more productive. I'll be honest with you. I don't even think I'm going to watch the Super Bowl this year. I just don't really care about football anymore. I'm not really a football fan. Like, I'm a Panthers fan. Well, but I don't care. And I'm like, I don't give a shit about Rihanna. Like, not even remotely interested in that. And then like the ads or whatever. So I'm fine not watching the Super Bowl.
This is why it's not an indictment on you at all. This is why, like, I am not, because I'm not seeing this for 18 weeks of it being shoved down my face. And then immediately when it's over, it's over. Now, the time thing, yes, I don't have children, but my thing is, let's say that your team that you root for, not you, because like you said, you're not huge, but these Steelers, why does the time different? Then it's still the Sunday in January. So it's like, now because of Steelers, I don't have to care about doing something with my kids. It's like, no, it's still my actual take on this is like, if you have children, I'm not saying I would just say no kids or not. I would still do and watch these things, but I also wouldn't be shoving it down people's throats about everything. I don't even shove. My actual favorite thing is Michigan, and I do care about that more than anything in the sports world, and I do shove that down. But I live or die with college football. I watch every single thing I can, and I make time for other things outside of that. I did not watch I watched the Lions as much as I could, but there were times where like I'm not watching everything, but I don't shove the Lions down people because number one, they're not a good franchise. But number two, it's like you do have to make outside choices in your life. But the other thing for me is like I still watch these other things and comment on these other things. So that's the weirdness for me. That would be the weirdness for me. But you're not a shove it down anyone's throat person either. You love the Indians. You love the
Guardians.
Cavs. I'm sorry, the Guardians. I'm still in that mindset. Yeah, sorry. The Guardians. 20 or 36 years of my life, they were one team. 1 year they weren't. So yeah, sorry. The Guardians. But you're not shoving it down people's throats about it.
I guess then the other thing that I would say is like, who cares?
The only reason I care is because, and I know it's a trivial thing, all sports is true. Nothing about sports matters.
No, I'm not even talking about that. Like, who cares what other people are like?
The reason why is because you take up my feed with your stuff, and I don't want to see it.
Then, like, don't follow them.
They still exist no matter what. But this is like anything. This is like anything on the internet. If you don't like something, you don't follow it. But like there also is that idea of, well, if I don't follow anything I hate, what am I going to follow?
I don't follow anything I hate.
Yeah. I probably follow more things I hate than I like.
Well, I feel like that's kind of a sad thing.
No, I think it's because things you like are only seeing the things you want to see. Sometimes you want to see things you don't necessarily, you know what I mean?
No, I don't ever want to see something I don't want to see.
If all the things you like, then you're never going to have a different influence. That would be that. My biggest thing is just,
I guess that's
I don't like hypocritical sports fans. That's just a big thing for me.
I don't know that that's hypocritical, but I mean,
to say that you care so much about one thing and then literally the second it's over, it's just done for you. I like watching
but it's
something
over.
be good though. But like
music, let me give you an example.
Music is really still music, whether you like.
I really like ice cream.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finish it, it's over.
No, but then you get more ice cream later.
Well, eventually.
The ice cream
just
doesn't
like the fans get the NFL never stops. Just like the NBA never stops.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't stop.
24-hour news cycle.
I mean, I'm glad you said that about the NBA.
But it goes away.
I mean,
it's just,
I don't think
not prioritize things like when they end. Like if I only prioritized ice cream, I'd be 900
I think I wouldn't have cared so much if someone just didn't on Championship Sunday, which is arguably, as a football fan, like one of the best days, even better than the Super Bowl because you have two really good games usually. To say I don't know what to do today, which made it just seem like you didn't know that this was even happening, really, really bugged me.
I think
that just actually really, really bugged me.
I think that you're personalizing things that you shouldn't personalize.
No, I will personalize anything all the time.
Well, you shouldn't.
Just don't say anything.
It's not healthy.
I don't care.
For you. You seem so upset. Why are you so angry?
Because
let me give you an example.
Number one, I'm still mad about the games yesterday, in the sense of like, why did the football gods let Brock Purdy get injured and make that game shitty for 3 hours? And then also, why are refs just so bad at their job?
Here's the thing.
In pretty much every sport.
I went on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm scrolling my Facebook.
Seems like a mistake.
I'm scrolling my Facebook.
Okay.
And I see someone who I have assigned through Facebook as a friend, and they commented and said that their comment was, "I've never played the game of The Last of Us, but is it as boring and what was the word? It was just on the tip of my tongue. Boring and formulaic as this show is." So I unfriended them.
It's a good move.
Because let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
If they have a bad opinion that is also wrong about The Last of Us, were they my friend to begin with?
That's true.
I say no.
That's true. That's a really rough take.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
That just seems like someone saying something for the sake of saying it. Because
it feels that way.
I will say that, honestly,
I just wanted to say, wow, are you
right thing ever?
Are you just
That's
posting up in the minority here. I mean,
like that is literally one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. You actually just made me mad about something else now.
See, I'm not
Like
mad about it though, because I just eliminated.
Yeah.
I eliminated toxicity from my life.
I mean,
that's how you do it.
I'm more of like, the one thing on this end is I am more into social media than you are.
Yeah, well, that's
You know,
yeah, and
I think that's just,
you were supposed to be the social media guy
I
because
don't know what that necessarily means.
I don't like.
Oh, like
Yeah,
well, I
you're supposed to
mean,
be our guy.
I don't, this is the one thing I'll say about, I don't really post a lot on social media. I just mean, I like, for generally speaking, I don't. Considering how often people tweet and do
You
other things, I
are
don't really. I put stories up, but stories
You
on,
are Mr. Instagram story.
no, Instagram stories easy though. To
You
write
know
a whole
what?
post about stuff, I'm not that, and I don't tweet that
I'm ready
much.
to. I'm ready
Let's
to.
move on now.
Yeah. It's time to talk about The Last of Us, episode 3.
Oh, gnarly sound.
What was the clickers?
I know, but it's just like the way it comes
Obviously.
through is so crazy sounding.
Yeah.
When you're
Well,
not seeing anything and you're just hearing it, that does
yeah.
some things to you.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Episode
Jeebies.
3. Episode 3. Billstown. Welcome to Billstown, I believe is the actual name of the episode.
Isn't it like long, long time or something? I thought.
Oh, you know what? I think just the description of it was Welcome to Billstown.
Long.
Billstown.
Oh, I thought it was a long time.
Um.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We're not prepared.
Because that's the song they play. Is the Linda Ronstadt song a
Oh
long
yeah.
time? That was the name of the.
She probably woke up and saw her Spotify streams like, what? Is she alive? I don't. She could be dead. I have no idea. Okay.
You know what? It is. It is called Long, Long Time. I'm right.
Is
I'm
it?
good. Yep.
Okay.
That third episode title, Long, Long Time. Good, because it'll say it's the song that they play.
Whoops. Yeah, long, long time. I apologize.
That happens. Still alive.
Bad.
She's 76.
Yeah, she checked her royalties and was like, why is everybody listening to my song? So the episode starts with Ellie and Joel traipsing through the I had some notes here that I want to make sure I brought up. Not on this page. I just have notebooks just around. Here it is. So they're kind of walking, they're I think 10 miles outside of Boston or so, and this is after the state house that they got away, and they're okay. And there's a scene in a store. Joel's trying to find some of his stuff. Ellie's kind of snooping around. We won't get into spoilers yet. And then as they're walking, she asks how the virus started, and he kind of explains that. And again, we'll get into that when we get after spoilers. And then we're transported back in time 20 years to Bill, played by Nick Offerman, and kind of how the end of the outbreak day goes for him, and what the next 20 years looks like with his companion Frank, until Joel and Ellie slide through Bill's town. And so, without too heavy spoilers, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Okay. So I will say initially when I watched this episode, it's a long episode.
It was a little bit longer. I think it was like a minute or an hour and 15. hour and
something
10,
like that.
something like that.
So it felt a little long at first. It felt like a lot of backstory, and then obviously like the relationship there. And I will say, like initially, I was like, "Is this a little corny?" I was thinking this a little bit. Like, is this kind of the idea of we just have this relationship to kind of break away from everything else that's going on? Because this was an episode where like nothing else except what is happening in this house is happening.
Hour and
And then,
15 without credits. Sorry.
okay,
Yeah,
and that's
sorry.
okay. And then I woke up this morning. I thought about the show a little bit more, and it's good to like in a way like you want to immediately react to things sometimes, but sometimes it's good to sit on it. And I sat on it, and I got to school today, and I'm just kind of randomly thinking about it. And then I thought about it more. I thought about the song being played, and I thought about the music and how important that was in this episode. I think music is really important in this show to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that too when music plays, or especially when it's sneaky. I really like that. And so then I thought about it more. And the name of this episode is the Linda Ronstadt song we mentioned. And I was like, oh, okay. So this episode ends up actually being really, really good because of all of that. And the other thing I'll say is like I immediately got done watching football and then going into this. So I'm always just in a mood, whether it's good or bad, you're just kind of in that mood that dictates how you feel. But then I stepped away from it and I thought about it. And two things really came out to me about this episode is number one, Nick Offerman can be Ron Swanson in kind of any way, and it still works because he is kind of Ron Swanson in this episode. And Murray Bartlett, where was he forever? Because he was in the White Lotus season 1, and he's in this, and he's just so good. And that really struck me as this, these people that kind of like overnight sensations who've been working for 20 years in the business.
Yeah.
And then I also just like this idea that when the leads of any show are not the leads of an episode, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And this is one where it really, really worked. And it shows that this show, or we'll talk about the video game later, but it shows that this show doesn't need to have its leads to still have an impact and still progress. Because sometimes these kind of shows do this and the show didn't progress. But I think this show still progressed. And I saw people today say, not only was this the best episode of this season, but this might be the best episode of television that happens this year. It just because it was so. I saw somebody say it was a perfect television episode, bar none, just a 10 out of 10 perfect television episode. I don't necessarily want to go that far. It was very, very good. I will definitely say it was very, very good. I don't know if it's perfect. I don't know what a perfect episode of television is, other than maybe, like I would say, a Seinfeld. There's probably Seinfeld episodes out there that I think are perfect, but that's just because I love that show, and maybe other people don't necessarily agree with that. This was the best episode of television that I can think of in the writing and the nuance that I've seen probably since the last season of Succession. And I mentioned this to you about Succession is still happening, so this year, so we could have a competition. But that's it. So I just thought this episode was really constructed well. It shows what you can do when you don't have a lead. And then when we get into the spoilers, we can get into that. But the one thing for me is like not playing the game. And I tried not to read things about the game because I want to hear it from you first.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of this episode, number one?
This episode was, I didn't necessarily know how to handle this episode from the point of view of having played the game, understanding what Bill's town is like in the game versus the depiction of it here, the character of Bill, the character of Frank. Frank is not in the game. Frank, and this is spoilers for a 10-year-old video game. Frank and Bill are alluded to being partners. There's some other signs that I'm going to get into when we get into the spoilers that Bill is a gay man, and you eventually come across Frank and you find him his corpse, and it's like heavily implied that they were in a relationship. But in addition to that, how how their ending is versus what happens in the episode is very different. This was the biggest departure from the game. This was, I would say, the character of Bill is relatively the same. How he kind of operates within this sort of small town is the same. The end of the episode with Joel and Ellie is the same. And after that, that's kind of where the similarities end. And so it was interesting. I always watch the inside of the episode, 5 minute or so featurette afterwards. And Neil Druckmann, who was one of the creators and directors on the first game, had said, when we look at different aspects of the story, do we look at it and say, okay, these changes are either going to make it worse or make it be about the same, or will they make them better? And if it was worse or about the same, they didn't make any changes. And if it was better, then they made changes. And this was one of the areas that they made changes. And I think that the more I watched it, and then the end, I think it was more meaningful to tell Bill's story this way rather than the way that it was told in the game, because it shows that after 20 years of post-apocalyptic mayhem, that it is still possible to love and to have a meaningful relationship and to have a life, basically. And I think that, and I've said this many times, that this is not a fun world to be in. Playing the games aren't necessarily fun. They're very engaging. They're extremely engaging. Their presentation's off the charts, but it's not like, it's not like zany or anything, like Crash Bandicoot, or even like, the Uncharted games all end kind of happy. And like Nathan Drake's a mass murderer, and I've kind of talked about that. But I think that those games all have those moments where, okay, I'm having fun now because of blah, 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 blah. And like playing The Last of Us, it's very engaging. It can be very satisfying, but at the same time, it's also like you're kind of miserable during it because the world just fucking sucks. It's like if anything like this ever happens, Jesus, man, it's gonna be awful. Whether it be the Yellowstone super volcano or nuclear destruction or some incurable virus like this. And if we get to the point where we're in post-apocalyptic wasteland, then forget about it. It's curtains, and I think that going in this direction kind of shows that this is, as Joel progresses with Ellie, this is what you're fighting for, is this type of, like, trying to regain some semblance of this type of life, even though it's 20 years later.
Right.
And so I thought that the changes were, and I'll tell you what, I had a great time on Twitter today, just reading the homophobia.
Oh, wow.
Incredible.
I didn't know that was, I mean, I should have expected that.
Oh yeah. You should have expected
go
it.
back. I'll go back.
It was incredible. Some of the things that I read. I wish I could. I don't want to steal a segment from a podcast that we just appeared on that we should have talked about that at the top, but maybe we'll definitely talk about it at the end, but we'll work it in there. But I wish I could read some of them, because holy shit. hilarity. Just absolutely like just really, really funny to me. But
Sure.
I didn't know, like going in, I was like, okay, I knew that they were going to tell, I knew that Frank was going to be a character. And I didn't know how I felt about that. And I knew that they were going to play on this backstory. I didn't know that it was going to be an entire episode. But to an extent, I'm kind of happy that it was, because I do think that it's like important to show. I think if it just was following Joel and Ellie, which when you're in a game, you're kind of constricted to that, where it's okay, Joel's the protagonist and he's got this kid following him around that can help you every now and again. It's really hard to deviate from that. But when you're in a television series, and this is why, another reason why I think television works better for adapting a 15-hour game than trying to fit everything into a 2-hour movie, is because now you have the ability to kind of open up and breathe and explore some of these characters in more meaningful ways. And you get that from this episode. And I thought, like I said, I thought it was exceptionally powerful. The story that was told, and like you said, all the nuance and the themes and everything that were kind of tied into it. But I want to get into spoilers.
Let's do it.
But before we get into spoilers, we're excited to announce that we have inked some deals.
Yeah.
With some of our local affiliates here. Have purchased some ad time with us. So this is probably going to be something that happens a little bit more often on the BXG. Now we're hitting the big time. We're going to pay those bills, Greg.
Let's do it.
And this episode and this review of The Last of Us is brought to you by Acorns. Like many nuts, acorn oil is a good source of essential fatty acids. Your body can't make essential fatty acids, so you have to get them from foods and drinks. They're important parts of the membrane that surrounds your cells. They also have many important functions, such as storing energy. For more information, see your local squirrel. Spoilers.
I always visit my local squirrel as much as possible.
Right.
Stage advice. Spoilers.
I think
you should start with this, because like the video game comparison to this is such a thing.
Right. And I think the one thing that really kicked it off for me was, or to get into, like we said, spoilers. I should get like a, hang on. I got something here. This will do.
Breaking news.
Yeah. I'll get something better. I just can't think of anything right now. Spoilers. The first part of the episode where Joel and Ellie are walking along and she asks him how the virus spread. If it spreads through biting, then who was the first person to get bitten and by what? And Joel explains to her that there was an infected with cordyceps crop of grain, and it was mass produced into flour, and it was contaminated, and it went into bread, cereal. And then he mentions pancake mix, which is a callback to the first episode where repeatedly Sarah says, I'm going to make you pancakes for your breakfast, and then just never does. And so that's like a tip that had she made those pancakes, it's likely that they would have been infected as well. But then it goes out to everywhere throughout the world because, the United States is a very big, or I don't know that he mentioned a specific where the contaminated crop came from, but it was contaminated and it was shipped all over the world. And then people who ate Thursday night, they would have started eating these things. By Friday, they were infected. Friday, September 26, 2003 is when everything went down. By Sunday, it was over. The world was over, basically. And so, really interesting insight. That's not something that they really touch on, at least in my direct memory during the game. And I just played through the opening couple chapters. You can catch that on our YouTube channel. I'm playing the game with the episodes as the episodes now release. So I'll have episode 3, Billstown, sometime later in this week. I literally just when we started finally posted episode 2 because I was having some issues with it, but that's not.
Are you Twitch doing these as well?
No, I'm just pre-recording it.
Okay.
And then editing it.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh shoot, I left my water over there. Oh well. So that's not really in the game. That fucked me up. And I texted you, I was like, well, I'm never eating grain again. I mean, and like you said, you said, I'll bet my whole existence that that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, I ate cereal the next morning.
Right.
But it was like,
I think I was eating cereal while that line was being said.
I was like, how? And this is the thing. There's like one thing, and there's one every episode. My mic got okay. There's one thing in every episode that just makes this all the more scary. And that's the thing. It was like the funny thing about like the whole like boring and what did I say? The person said it was boring and formulaic. Boring and formulaic. Yeah. And I'm like, man, you're not paying attention to the nuance then.
Yeah.
Because there's something in every episode so far that it's just like, this could happen. Like the science is there. Like this could be a thing. And it's just terrifying. And like, that's the thing is like, there's jump scares, whatever, you know, the clickers and the infected and the runners to a degree are scary. And there's going to be people who are scary and jump scares and things like that. But that's not, and I always say like, I can't do scary stuff, right? I can't do like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'll never play a Resident Evil game as long as I live. But it's because of like the jump scare type stuff that I don't like that. And this is lighter on that and more on the like the existential dread. This is why I say like Ex Machina is the scariest movie ever to me. Because of the possibility of something like that happening. And it's like they're like leaving these breadcrumbs of, well, this is plausible.
Don't eat those breadcrumbs.
They're leaving these things out. And
now that I know you have that, get ready.
What's that?
Now that I know you have the drum rolls or the whatever, what is that called? I believe you're
the badum-ching.
The badum-ching, but there's a name for that. I'm at the ready.
Right.
Well, doing all kinds of cocaine to be ready for this.
Well, we'll see how the next one of your jokes goes off. So it's really scary to me, that part.
Well, realistic is always scarier than like
the fantastic.
That's the thing. It's just fantastic. So that's the thing. Like I can understand where like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a scary movie because that could actually happen.
Well, it did happen, right?
Right, it did actually
or
happen.
At least
so it actually happened.
Based on and
it's based off of that. But it's like obviously, other things are just so outlandish they can't happen. This is the thing where like, yes, it was passed through, and it's not to say it would be this extent, but it could be a thing that like if it's bacteria,
right,
like E. coli is always a thing,
right,
that gets passed through, and then like if people eat it, and then boom, we lose. I mean, not somewhere, but like COVID was a very light version of this.
Yeah,
I know COVID obviously was destructive, but
but not
wasn't the end of the world.
It wasn't apocalyptic. Yeah. So there was that. Frank and Bill. First of all, I love this little Easter egg. And it's only an Easter egg that you would know if you've played the game, obviously. But at the beginning, that's how I meant to intro you too. Not fuck. We might have to redo the intro because I was going to introduce you as one of these New World Order jackboot motherfuckers or whatever he says.
I
But
am that.
when he's like down in his bunker and it's just showing everything and like he
Yeah,
has these like survival manuals on the wall. Okay.
so good.
It very clearly points one of them out and it's guns and ammo.
Hell yeah.
Did you happen to catch that or no?
No, I did not catch
Okay,
that.
well that's an Easter egg from the game. That's actually a gay porno mag
Hell yeah.
because
I like that.
in that section, Ellie picks up like some of his stuff, and then at the end of the episode where they're riding
That's
away,
awesome.
she's like in the back of the truck, like sleeping, and she's like going through these magazines, and she's like, "Check out this guy" or something. It'll be in episode 3 of my playthrough, but like. It's like, check out this guy. Look at that thing. He's like, where'd you get that? And he's like, I stole it from Bill. Why are all the pages stuck together? And it's just like a brief moment of levity. And so to see that
Huh?
call back in the episode of Guns and Ammo, because it's not
That's
about
fucking funny.
it's neither guns nor ammo. I can assure you that.
Well,
But
that's how you look at it.
so so there's that. But the end of the episode is what was towards the end, not the end, but the end of the episode was what was really moving, where Frank is sick and they've spent this life, basically they've grown old together. They were a partnership couple, whatever you want to call it, for 17 years, because I think it was 3 years after the fact that Frank showed up. And he's sick. He's got some terminal. I don't know that they say for sure. He says something about an MRI, like a portable MRI machine or whatever. The door to door MRI salesman coming to their town. It's a very Anytown USA vibe too. Is the other thing that I liked about this, and the game has that as well. But I think that I think the end was really like, you could like initially you would look at it as tragic, but I think in the end, the fact that Frank and Bill mutually decide, Bill decides along with Frank. Frank's like, okay, I'm really sick, I'm not going to get any better, I've lived the life with you that I want to live, and so now I want you to euthanize me, basically. And then Bill makes the decision after their day of, they get married, they have the same dinner that they had on the first night that they met, they have um these moments, they share these moments, and then they commit suicide together. But I think that given the world that they live in and what they have experienced to that point, I don't think that it's tragic at all. Actually, I actually think that it was quite a happy ending for the two of them. And so when Joel and Ellie come through and find the note, Bill's note that says like, to whoever finds this, but probably Joel. And that was kind of the thing that I will say was missing a little bit from this Nick Offerman's Bill, is that it was there a little bit, but he in the game, he's a very, very sarcastic prick. And it's just stuff like that. And that's the one thing that I think that making the decision to change this part of the story to be more reflective of the Bill and the Frank character versus seeing how all that played out with Joel, Ellie, and Bill, is that in the game, Ellie and Bill, from the moment they lay eyes on each other, can't stand each other. Like, she's a shithead teenager, he's this like overbearing kind of sarcastic dickhead. And having their interactions kind of helps wear down Joel's walls a little bit towards
Mhm.
Ellie. And so I do think that is lacking a little bit by making this narrative choice. But at the end, I think that it was almost like it served the story overall better than having it been the way it would have, I think. And so it was really, like I said, I thought it was a happy ending. The last thing, well, what did you think? What did you think about like the relationship and the ending?
I
And
thought of this as the exact opposite ending with the same ending. It sounds weird to say, of Romeo and Juliet,
sure, kind of.
where they end dying together, but it's of woe. And for never was a story more woe of Romeo and Juliet, but
Other than Princess Padme's
for a
in
story
Revenge of the
of
Sith, who
more
just dies of sadness.
for a
Sorry.
story of more wow than Frank and Bill, because it's amazing they made it through. So that's how I looked at it. It's that going out together,
Yeah,
but in Romeo and Juliet, it was of sadness. It was because there was forbidden love.
sure.
Romeo and Juliet, top four Shakespeare play. Top four Shakespeare play.
Top four.
Top four.
Yeah, I don't know
Top
about
four.
that.
We'll do our Shakespeare play rankings
Yeah,
at
that's
some
on
point. Yeah.
it's in a different.
Don't I can't reveal my number one. My number one I got scolded for by
Yeah,
someone at the bookstore because she's like, you're a terrible person. But
you're a
it didn't
simpleton.
make me it I no, it's because it's not a simpleton. It is because it's so dark. But like darkness. But it made me think of Shakespeare. Now that I
Yeah,
really
sure.
look
Well, there
back,
was
it,
even a reference to that, I think,
there was
too.
a reference, yeah. And so it's that thing where there can only be seven stories ever told, and Shakespeare did all of them many times over. But this was one of those times where someone did it exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, in the moment, I wasn't sure. But like I said, sometimes you just need to like think about it. Now, I mean, Mad Men is my favorite serious show of all time, and there's the Carousel episode, which is to me still the best serious episode of television ever made, and I don't know if anything will ever beat that. I mean, it just hits a certain thing, but this is one of those episodes that does everything basically right and hit those notes to do those things right and to not be the main characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is so important because Don Draper makes the speech in the carousel episode, but the main characters don't make anything of poignancy in this. This is all these two, and I think that's really cool. I did not see this coming. I think that was another thing too, where you just
Sure.
don't see this being an episode of like not the main characters, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
yeah, and I used to do this. I wish I had more time. We talked about time before. I wish I had more time because Mad Men, I always watched it twice.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I just didn't care. I would just be like, I'm watching it, and I would watch it right afterwards. I just did that, because I liked it so much, and and this is a show that I should probably do that. I do think now this show is the front runner for best television
Everything.
show. I mean, it's always so hard to say everything because you have other things that are different. But Succession, like I mentioned, has come on. But Succession is going to have to do some things.
I don't like.
I
I've never
really think
watched
so.
that, and I know that I should, and I should probably. There's how many seasons so far? 3, 4.
3 of the 4th season starts in March. Yeah.
In March. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know that, but I just feel like I just feel like things are gonna be. It's gonna be very, very difficult knowing this story the way that I
Sure.
know it
Okay.
and
Yeah.
seeing seeing already what Pedro Pascal, Bella Ramsey, Nick Offerman, Anna Torv, Neil Druckmann, the other guy who directs it, I can't think of his name. It's the dude from Chernobyl. It's just, I don't have it at the moment, but seeing what they've done with 3 episodes and knowing what's left to come, and
so we're 5 episodes more, right, Brandon?
6. There's 9.
6. They're 9.
And
okay.
It did get renewed for a second season.
Right.
So
yeah.
that will cover the events of the second game. I don't know how they're going to do that per se, but because it's a much larger game, it's probably, I can beat the first game if I mainline it and play it on like easy or normal. I can probably beat it in like 10 or 12 hours. And the second game, I've only played it once because I needed to get some space from it before I tried to play it again, because it's even more dour and like depressing than the first one. It's a good 25, 30 hours. So I'm not sure how they're going to put that. I almost see them splitting season 2 or the second game into 2 seasons. I think that they could do that, but whether they do or not is up for debate. Anyway, before we kind of close this out, I just wanted to read, so we get the note, right? And it's Bill's note to Joel, and it's very sentimental. We are protectors. That's what we were put here to do in this situation. Save the people you can save, which is what Tess says to him or whatever. But, use whatever you can find and protect your family, protect those you love, that sort of thing. We are protectors. That's what we're here for. I never thought I went away. I liked what happened because everyone went away and left me alone. That sort of thing. Okay.
Yes.
So it was kind of hard. It was like a little bit heartfelt, but also like some of that trademark Bill sarcasm or what have you. But I want to read you Frank's note from the game. And again, this is spoilers for a 10-year-old game. So, and then just to get into that further in the game, in this section of the game, you're looking for, they've made the decision that they're going to try and find Tommy, Joel's brother. And so to do that, they need a vehicle. And at this point where the world's at, vehicles with batteries are very difficult to come for, or rather just batteries for these vehicles are very hard to come from, or very, very hard to come by. And so you have to navigate Bill's town, and they alluded to like his traps and stuff like that. And you have to kind of like make it through all of Bill's traps before you find Bill. And then he kind of takes you to this town, through the town to the high school. And I was really looking forward to this because it's a badass, like early boss fight kind of. And you're in this high school and you're kind of creeping through like the science rooms and stuff like that. There's clickers in there and you're trying to avoid them. And it's when this is in the game when you see the bloater for the first time, which is just a bigger version of the clicker. And it's stronger and it has like some different aspects. I'm interested to see how they handle that in the show. But this is where you see the bloater, and then they don't find a battery where they think they do, but they escape the school and kind of hide out in this house. And just by happenstance in that house is this blue truck, right? So it's like the same truck. Mm-hmm. But that is the house where Frank commits suicide. And what happens in the game is that Frank got bit trying to leave the town, and then he kills himself before he turns, and he leaves a suicide note. And so this is what the note says. And this shows the difference between the show and the game as far as what Bill and Frank's relationship was like. And there were some times in the show that they noted like some different struggles or stuff like that, but
yeah,
it never got tenuous like this. So it says, and then this is like a collectible you can find. Well, Bill, I doubt you'll ever find this note because you were too scared to ever make it to this part of town. But if for some reason you did, I want you to know I hated your guts. I grew tired of this shitty town and your set in your ways attitude. I wanted more from life than this, and you could never get that. And that stupid battery you kept moaning about, I got it, but I guess you were right. Trying to leave this town will kill me. Still better than spending another day with you. Good luck, Frank.
Holy shit. So
So
instead of
it's
one last good day, it's get the fuck out of here day.
yeah, yeah. So they have somewhat of a irreconcilable
That's
differences.
hilarious.
Yeah, so that was funny, like the way that it ended, because well, that was the other thing. As the episode's going on, I keep waiting for Frank to just like get sick of him and go
Yeah.
off like that. And I think the scope of the town in the game is a lot bigger because there's more neighborhoods and stuff like that. You really only see his house, his fence, and the gate, and then just kind of like the buildings around it. But in the game, it's a large town. So there's all that. But and again, I'll be playing through that. Hopefully, I'll have that out here in a couple days. But so you can check that out if you want to see those parts of the game. But overall, I thought this was another very good episode. Big change. And sometimes change is good and sometimes it's bad and sometimes it's additive and sometimes I think people change just to change. And sometimes, we got to put this, force agendas with our woke ass liberal mindsets into our TV shows. That was one of the tweets I read. Somebody was like,
There's
"Oh,
nothing to do with that.
this episode sucked
Oh my
because
god.
because people were forcing their woke liberal agendas into this show."
Yeah,
And everybody
that was
tweeted, I
it.
was like, "What are you talking about? He was gay in the game." And the guy was like, "Where?"
Where?
It's like, did you even play the game? But I digress.
Sure.
Yeah, so we got to look at episode 4, which is there's another big change with episode 4, which is that in this portion of the game, it takes place in Pittsburgh, and they have changed that location to Kansas City, which is interesting because to make it from Boston to Kansas City, that's a pretty good
That's
drive.
a yeah.
And so I always was under the impression that Pittsburgh felt right because that was kind of like a checkpoint. If you're driving from Boston to California or Wyoming, they're on their way to Wyoming. I don't know if that's actually been said in the game yet or in the show yet, but they're on their way to Wyoming. Um, it would make sense that you would like, you're on I-80 and it's like, oh shit, we got to go into the city for supplies, that sort of thing, and kind of check things out. But yeah, the game in that part's super dope because you can see the bridges and they're really good throughout the game with making it accurate traffic signs, so you can see like Fort Duquesne tunnel and all that.
Do you
Like,
go to like PNC Park and
no, I
grab a
mean
glizzy?
it's pretty linear, and I can't say for sure exactly like certain streets. I will say that the hotel scene that was in the second episode is actually in that part of the game. It's not where they had it, so they did kind of some rearranging on that. But overall, so we're heading into that, and I remain excited every week. I can't wait. 9 o'clock.
It's great television.
I usually start like 9:30 because that's the closest time I can. But
Mm.
there's no other show that I'm like this with. Any other show, even the ones that we like that I watch, it's like, I'll get to it when I get to it.
No, same here. It was football
Yeah.
and it was let's watch this show.
Right.
That's it.
Now we'll move on to a show that we don't really want to talk about. And that is Kaleidoscope.
We have to do it.
Yeah, we got to do it.
It's ad read time though.
Oh, is it? We got to pay
It
the bills?
is.
Okay.
Kitchen countertops. You got to put your stuff somewhere. Kitchen countertops. They'll be there before you were there in your house, and they're going to be there after you leave. kitchen countertops. That is insane.
Kaleidoscope.
Okay, so last week we mentioned that we would watch the heist episode and see where that takes us, and if we would go further along.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, it
Continue.
is what it is. Yeah. So I told you I'm going to watch the first 15 minutes. If the first 15 minutes of anything about a heist, probably honestly my favorite thing, something I've wanted to do my entire adult life. I've loved the idea of doing a heist. It's so cool. So if something like this can't do it, where the show's literally about a heist and it doesn't work, then I'm just done with it. So I sent you a text. I thought I was going to be able to watch it quickly, sooner in the day than I was able to. It just stuff happens when you're at school. So whatever. But I did eventually watch actually the entire episode.
Oh, good for
And
you.
well, I watched it at 1.5 times speed. So it still makes it 30 minutes or whatever.
Right.
But the thing I'll say is no, it didn't work.
Okay.
And I think this is the biggest problem about this show, and I think a lot of other shows, and not just because of the Netflix stink, but I think just kind of the show stink. I'll start with the macro or I'll start with the micro with this show's problem, and then expand to the macro very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't watch this, right, Brendan? Just to clarify for the listeners, right?
No, I just
right.
I look for I look for the good in everything. I try. We make a commitment, but
Sure,
this
yeah.
was, and I tried to convince myself after the first couple episodes, like this is doable, and it wasn't doable at all.
You're right. You're right without having to watch this, because the problem with this show is it was trying to be clever. You can watch any episode and you can watch it any route you want to go. And for those of you that have seen Fight Club, there's the line where Tyler Durden gives the narrator the line of, he says he's clever, and he's like, well, what's that like, being clever?
Right.
And being the idea is that clever is not really good. It's the idea of like, that's fine, but like, what does it actually end up doing for you? And it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so it's this idea that this show was trying to be clever. It was trying to be too cute. And I won't say it was trying to be high concept, because I will say most high concept things I like Conan O'Brien's show before that was on after Jay Leno's show was considered high concept. And I really like that, because it was, and like Letterman before Big Time Letterman was considered high concept. Things like that. Rick and Morty is high concept, where you're taking something and it's not going to be for everyone, but the people it's for, they love it. And it's a little more than cult. It's a little less than popular. So that kind of genre. And that's, to me, a high concept. This was not high concept. I think this was just concept. It was like, let's do a show where none of it matters. But the thing is that things do matter in a heist. I think if this show was like a general sitcom, like a general, because even a Seinfeld is not high concept, except it is in a weird way. But Seinfeld, you can watch in any order. It doesn't matter. Like, one episode doesn't normally translate to the next. I mean, there's little parallels and things like that, season to season. But if you watch the 3rd episode of season 4 and the 8th episode of season 4, you're not wrong.
Right.
There's little things. Yeah, if you're a big Seinfeld person, there's big things if you're a big Seinfeld person, but there's little things that matter, but not really. You can just pick any random episode and have a good time. This is a thing where, like, I actually think this mattered to watch it in order, even though they were adamant it didn't, and like our background show with like the maze or whatever, because the episodes we watched at random, these people seemed incompetent and just out of their element with anything. Like, I wouldn't trust these people to solve a maze in the back of the cereal box. And then we go and watch this heist episode, and they are locked in. I mean, it's Jordan, in the finals. It's Tiger on on a Sunday. It's these things where it is locked in. And you're like, this doesn't make sense. Because you told me I could watch this show anyway. And we watched 2 episodes where one guy, our main character has, a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm. Parkinson's.
It seems, but other things in prison, Parkinson's, and just doesn't seem competent. I mean, beyond Parkinson's, I've seen people, I've been around people with Parkinson's that seem competent. That is not a mental thing. It's
right,
a physical thing that affects.
Yeah.
And so, but he literally doesn't seem competent. And other people in this show don't seem like I said, they couldn't solve a maze in the back of the cereal box. And then I'm in this episode and I'm thinking to myself, they're doing this heist with so many intricate things. And I'm not going to get into all the intricacies. They use bees as a distraction for the cameras to set the cameras off. They create some face, a shield mask that looks more like the infrared mask for people to help their skincare. It looks more like that, like a Kylie Jenner concept thing.
Which I do not know which one that is.
But you do know.
I don't know.
But you do know.
But I don't know. But I don't know.
So there is that.
I don't know. I do not know.
But you do know.
But I don't know. You're actually making me really mad by insisting.
No, but you do know who the Jenners are as a concept. So
yeah, but I don't know which one she is.
But you know what they do.
Nothing.
No, they do things. They actually create businesses. So they do create.
Right.
But
Nothing.
you do know this. So anyhow, this is beyond the point. So they go from being people that I literally wouldn't trust to watch a fish to being someone that can disrupt this entire thing that we don't really know that much about because they didn't explain it in the other episodes. Very minimally. So you can't tell me that you can watch a show out of order and then I have no idea what was going on in this heist episode. So I'm not going to go much longer. This was really poorly done. I honestly think that they saw the Andor heist episode and they were we fucked up. Well, no, what I'm saying is that is the highest level. And what I think they should have done is they should have Batgirled this thing and said, we can't do this. We shot it all. Here's some pennies on the floor. And we're not doing it because this is bad. And it's bad. It's 100% bad. I did not enjoy this. There was nothing captivating about it. They actually seemed dumber that they were doing the heist because they kept messing up things. And somehow they still got away with it.
Mm.
And any other good heist thing, which is pretty much every other heist thing I've ever seen in my life, Oceans, just anything, honestly. It's literally anything where you've seen a good, Starsky and Hutch is not a good movie, which is my point, but yet they pull off a heist.
They're cops.
But they still are pulling off this small heist of tricking people because they're not good cops. That's my actual point. That movie's bad.
Oh, I think it's fine.
And they're still no, but I mean, it's a funny movie, but it's not good. And we're taking something where you could have just done something better with this. And that's where my brain was going with this, where I was like, wow, they don't know what they were doing. And it just didn't work. And so this is my plea. I think, as much as I like this concept, I feel like we need to stop with heist. Because this is only if you're going to do it in one episode or one movie. You can't stretch it out to a TV show. And you can't make it something where people are dumb. That's it. You can't make the people look dumb at all because the second they look dumb, you're out. And that's the problem with this show. That's my micro. The macro is stop pretending you're smarter than what you are when making TV shows. Give us something that is honestly a little formulaic, but with some insight behind it. A good guy, a bad guy, that's fine. Because we like shows that don't necessarily have that, but there is something about a good guy and a bad guy. Just fighting it out, see what happens. Some little characters in between, that is okay. Do something like that. Because we're talking about Netflix here. It would still work. It would still be okay. It's episodes 1 through 8. Nothing happens for the most part, but at least it's something that I can maybe digest. This was indigestible. That lesson, I honestly only watched the rest of it because I think we agreed that you wouldn't. And so I was like, I'm just going to do it because I think that it's worth doing it just so I can kind of shit on it. And it just wasn't good. And I stick by the thing that Giancarlo Esposito just can't lead. He's just not good enough. He's not slick enough, and he's not charming enough, and he's not brooding enough to be a lead actor. And you have to be one of those three things to be a lead, or evil enough.
Oh, he's evil enough.
Well, he's evil enough as a side companion in any show that we've seen. We've never seen him be evil by himself, and we haven't. He's
Gus
always
Fring?
the sidekick. That's not. He's got his compartment of being on other shows like Breaking Bad. There's the most evil guys in Breaking Bad.
Is the protagonist.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So he's the
know.
most evil, and so he can't stand alone. And there's some people, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's plenty of people that are sidekicks, and that's fine. To be a Robin your entire life is not bad. It's just what it is. And I think that's what he is. He's not any of these things enough to work. And that's my thoughts. Stick to what got you there, and don't try to extend, because this show just doesn't work. This is so funny. He's unbelievable as a lead. He's not believable at all as someone that could do this. Because I think he's a good actor. Yeah, he's a good actor, but he doesn't do anything with this. He's not good at doing this.
All right. So I think from both of us, I mean,
it's not good. It's honestly, I can't even give it I can't give it a number grade because it's just not worth your time.
Well, I don't think that it's incomplete.
Right, it's incomplete. It's an INC, and it just isn't worth your time.
DNP coach's decision. No, there wasn't any injury. You're just not capable of getting the job done. So you mentioned during that the Kaleidoscope that they should have Batgirled it, which actually gives us some breaking news.
I grade that slightly.
Yeah, sure. The other day here, January 31st, the new co-CEOs of DC Studios, James Gunn and Peter Safran, announced their current plan for the first chapter of the revamped DCU, which ends the DCEU. And they're calling it Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. It's a 2-year plan. A 2-year? I don't know. Whatever. But they have some flashy announcements for us, and some confirmation of a few other things. So I think the big thing that we need to get into was one of the things they said, which was that there will be the DC universe. The DCU is a multiverse, but they're focusing on one of those universes. But things that come outside of that particular universe can be considered elsewhere projects or elseworld projects, as they are in the comics. And two very important components of that are the Joker and the Batman. And so we knew Joker 2, Lady Gaga in the role of Harley Quinn, Mr. Phoenix returning as Arthur Fleck the Joker.
Is Lady Gaga going to be Harley Quinn?
I believe so. I believe that's who they said she was playing. I mean, I will.
You could be right.
Quickly
I
double
didn't
check
remember
that
exactly.
for you, but I'm
Yeah.
90% sure that is who she's slated to play. Yes, Harley Quinn.
Okay.
Brendan Gleeson also gonna pop up in that. Neither here nor there. Nice. The other aspect of that, we already knew that was greenlit. The Batman Part 2, we have to wait until 2025, which is lame. But Matt Reeves, Pattinson will be given their own trilogy. Meanwhile, the Flash movie with Ezra Miller will effectively reset the universe. So that's what they're going to use this as sort of a way to reset the DC universe from the DCEU to the DCU. And then they're going to start to kind of pick up steam from there. And let's see where I had that. Oh, you threw me off. Use the wrong window. July 11th, 2025 will be Superman Legacy. Not an origin story. Will show Clark Kent balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. The Brave and the Bold, which will follow Damian Wayne, the son of Bruce Wayne, and Talia al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, described as a father and son story. Just trying to see. Okay. Newly announced movies. Superman Legacy, written by James Gunn. The Authority, Wildstorm characters will join the DCU as members of the Authority, take matters into their own hands to do what they believe is right. The Brave and the Bold, DCU will introduce its Batman and Robin in its unusual father-son story inspired by Grant Morrison's comic series. Supergirl, World of Tomorrow, science fiction adventure, which will be based on Tom King's amazing award-winning recent comic stories, presents a Supergirl viewers are not used to seeing, Swamp Thing. The film will investigate the dark origins of Swamp Thing. Really well-written descriptor there. Newly announced TV series, Creature Commandos, a 7-episode animated show in which Amanda Waller creates a Black Ops teams out of monster prisoners. James Gunn wrote all the episodes of the first season. Then we have Waller, starring Viola Davis, returning in the role of Amanda Waller. The series features Team Peacemaker and will be written by Crystal Henry, who wrote The Watchmen for HBO, and Jeremy Carver, who wrote Supernatural. And it takes place in between Peacemaker Season 1 and Peacemaker Season 2. Booster Gold uses basic technology from the future to pretend to be a superhero in the present day. Lanterns, this is an enormous TV event series, follows intergalactic cops John Stewart and Hal Jordan as they uncover a dark mystery, which is obviously Green Lantern stuff. Paradise Law, set in the home of the Amazons and birthplace of Wonder Woman. Although she will not be present, this drama focuses on the genesis and political intrigue of an island full of women. Previously announced DC projects that will be going forward: Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman, and The Lost Kingdom, Peacemaker Season 2, Joker, Folie à Deux, The Batman 2, Gotham Knights, which we did a hilarious trailer reaction for that got rave reviews by our friend up there in Beantown. Superman and Lois, and then Pennyworth on HBO Max. The goal is to have 2 movies and 2 shows a year. Mr. Gunn had some other interesting quotes, primarily regarding Henry Cavill. But before we get into those, what does this list of things do for you?
Not a lot.
Not a
I
lot.
mean, I'm glad that we get the Batman. You
Mhm.
know, like that's the big thing because there was concerns. There was legit concerns like,
Yeah.
are we going to get Pattinson back? That Batman's great. I mean, we both loved the first one.
Yeah.
Should have been nominated for Best Picture. I mean, that kind of thing. That kind of reviews from us. Uh, I honestly don't have interest in anything. I like zero. I would say zero is where I'm at on everything else. I don't care. I think it's weird that Ezra Miller somehow just keeps clicking away,
Well, he's
even
fat.
though,
Oh,
like, even though,
sorry.
uh,
I
even though
had to.
he like keeps getting accused of things,
Right. Pled guilty to like
yeah,
burglary or robbery,
let's
whatever.
get like he's not a good human, but like let's keep clicking away, especially since he's the Flash, which is
Well, he's
like,
outrunning, he's so far he's been
yeah, he's
able to
not
out.
running the law, but
Yeah.
like the Flash is such a boring character. It just like just be like, this is the thing
Well,
that brings
he's
us
fast.
together. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we got Usain Bolt running us to the next thing, and it's like I don't care that this is what does it.
Well, I think they're
Uh,
using that as the kind of the reboot because I
yeah,
believe that the story of that to some extent is like Flashpoint Paradox.
mhm,
So
sure.
I maybe I don't
I'm
know.
sure you're right. I just the Flash is boring. Like it's just one of those comic
I
book
got news
characters
for
that,
you. All
yeah.
these characters are boring.
Well,
Other
except for
than
the
Batman,
Batman.
right?
I will say there are other characters that are like not boring in the DC universe, but they're odd characters that are more side characters than anything. Superman is obviously boring. Uh,
Yeah,
the
we've
thing that bugs me about that is that Henry Cavill is literally Superman. Like in a general like human being sense, like he looks like Clark Kent. He is Superman, and if anyone would be Superman, it would be him. And I know that like I've heard reports about him not being like the easiest guy to get along with or whatever, but
I have
I
not
don't
heard that actually. I've
I've heard some
never.
things. I heard a couple of stories that were just like very like that he was very adamant about being like certain things in these movies. And it's like, well, yeah, you're Superman. And I agree with that. Like he is that character. He's more so that character than probably anyone has ever been, even Christopher Reeves. I mean, like in the looks and in the actual like what that guy looks like. Uh, I'll be interested to see who the next Superman is. Will I see that movie? I mean, maybe eventually when I can, but I'm not rushing to the theaters. I will see Batman the day it comes out.
Mhm.
Um, I'll
So
see Joker too the day it comes out. I will. The Joker was like another character where I mean I know that's part of Batman, but being a side character in a movie or a side movie, yeah, I just don't have interest in anything else.
let
I
me pause you
just very
there.
quickly. No, I just don't have a lot of interest in a lot of Marvel stuff. I'll still see it, but like I'm not that. In fact, I'm not super enthused about Marvel right now either. In all fairness, so
Right. Let me hop in with two things that James Gunn said. I'm going to see if I can find the specific quotes from him regarding Henry Cavill. Okay. He said, James Gunn said, quote, I like Henry. I think he's a great guy. I think he's getting dicked around by a lot of people, including the former regime at this company. But this Superman is not Henry for a number of reasons. He wasn't fired. He just wasn't hired. Um, and
well,
so I think
that's
that,
being fired.
well, no, I mean, part of it was that he didn't have a contract. Like they announced
Yeah,
another
yeah.
movie, and the man did not have a contract. Um, and he said that he also said that the previous leadership at Warner was fucked up, quote, fucked up, Peter Safran, DC Studios co-CEO, shared his thoughts on Batgirl at a recent press event and said that the cancellation was a bold and courageous decision, but that it was not releasable. It was in such poor shape. Seeing if I can find any other specific quotes from these guys. It depends on. So this is Gunn talking about ratings, movie ratings. It depends. Quote: It depends on the story. We're going to give every story what it deserves. Some things we know Superman is definitely something we'd like to be PG-13. I'm going to make sure it is. Waller is more mature. And obviously the Suicide Squad movie that he did, which was very good, in my opinion. He was, I mean, it was R-rated, and it was bloody, and it was hilarious in many of the ways. It was like Guardians, but it took it to that next step of maturity, right?
Mm.
So with all that being said, I'll tell you the two things that are probably the most exciting for me on this list. Well, actually, the one thing, because I think the Batman goes without saying, right? That's the Batman Part 2 is definitely the thing I'm most excited for. I'm going to tell you the second thing that I'm most excited for out of this slate of announced projects. Do you want to guess?
I honestly have no idea.
Swamp Thing.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
not even kidding about that.
All right. Yeah. No.
I think that like there used to be like a Swamp Thing show, like way back in the day.
I had the action figure.
Yeah, I think I had one also, but like my dad and I used to watch that.
Sure.
Who chase me around the house and make like a weird voice and call himself Swamp Thing. So there's like, but I don't know. That character is like kind of fascinating to me for some reason. But the rest of the shit I don't care about. What do you think about the
Joker 2? I'm fascinated by.
Well, I
The
mean
first Joker's really good.
I should say the
DCU.
DCU stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Because like Peacemaker season 2, I'm down with. Peacemaker was great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the DCU
hilarious.
stuff was just like whatever. What did you think about The Bold and the Brave, the Batman story that they're going to be telling?
This is actually what I think. Just make a Batman TV show. Because that cartoon series was incredible.
Well, yeah, the Batman
you know what I mean?
series was incredible. Yeah.
It's
Kevin,
literally
you can't make one though because Conroy's dead. And Hamill said he'll never be Joker without
but I'm not
Conroy.
saying make it. I'm not saying make it an animated. I'm talking about doing a live action Batman TV series. And like I would say, do a kind of thing where it's not the '60s Batman, and don't make it as dark as what we're seeing now. Be a little corny. And I honestly think what I'm saying on this, Brenton, what I'm saying, not fully corny. Get the stink face off. Not fully corny, but understand that it's a TV show. Understand it's a TV show. So he's doing serious things where he's fighting crime, but like he goes on a date. Bruce Wayne goes on a date and it's awkward because he doesn't know how to interact with people, which is that kind of thing that's always been part of Batman. Because Bruce Wayne is like fake suave and kind of weird. You know, even Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne is weird, where he's just like, well, I'll just throw money at the problem. And I'm not actually suave. I just throw money at things. And because I'm good looking, these things, I think that'd be funny. Like, corny in the sense of not so corny where like, bam, wow. But like, he goes on a date and, you know, it's just this idea of like, things don't work out necessarily as well. He's not as like articulate as he is as being Batman. Almost this idea of it being like a situational comedy or something, just to mix it up if you're going to do this. Because, but when it's serious, when it's Batman fighting crime, and it can be all these low level characters, like the guy behind me, Condiment King. I think that would be great. I honestly do. I think it's like play into it. It's still Batman. It's just this idea of like this is just a guy that is Batman in the city, and it's the very. I'm trying to think of like the best way to like
Well, it
do
almost
this.
sounds
So,
like you're pitching like almost like a Lois and Clark
like a Lois,
sort of
because that
deal.
show. What's funny is that show was good.
Yeah,
Like that show was like a prop. Like
it was
it was rated very.
It was well received. Yeah,
It was well received. It was well written, and something like that I think would do really, really well because everyone likes Batman. It's like we got Gotham, which was well received, but it wasn't Batman.
Batman, right?
It's like,
Yeah.
why not
Did you
just
watch
throw
any of that?
Batman? I did. Yeah, actually, I watched the first like 3 or 4 seasons. I honestly just got away from it because it was just other things got in the way.
Yeah, sure.
But I thought it was really good. It was definitely well written and well conceived. Why not just do like what's the worst thing that'll happen? It's Batman. People will watch Batman. That's the one thing we know is that even if the Batman movies suck, they still make a lot of money because it's Batman. You could arguably say Batman's the coolest comic book character. The only other character that comes close to Batman is Spider-Man.
Right.
That's in the coolness factor. Like that's the thing, and it's like I'm surprised no one's ever done. I'm surprised they haven't done this because why not? Like just do it and see what happens. Especially now that they have this whole thing where it's like, well, we have this, but we also could just do whatever we want on the outside. And it's like, okay, so actually none of this matters and you haven't done anything different.
Right. And that's the thing that I think I think that that'll end up being a big part of the problem is that you have this thing with the Batman and the Joker and I think the problem with the DCEU, excuse me, which was the previous regime, was you had like the makings of something. I know that people did not like Batman v Superman. I thought it was fine. I think I'm in the minority on that, but that's okay. And then the first Wonder Woman was very good, but then after that, it was just stink bomb after stink bomb. And then we get into this situation where, okay, the DCEU's Joker is Jared Leto, who nobody really cares for in that role. So we're going to make this Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie. And then it's like, well, Ben Affleck doesn't want to do Batman anymore because Justice League tanked. So, okay, well, we're going to give Matt Reeves, the runway to make his idea. I think that having stuff outside, like you said, outside is going to create confusion. And it's going to be looked at poorly when they're bringing out the bold and the brave, and it's going to be whoever in the role of Batman, and then some kid is Damian Wayne. And that's a fairly interesting run of comics and storyline, whatever, but it's not going to be as good as the Batman movies because we've seen this with Batman. The reason the Bale movies work and the Keaton movies work, and thus far the Pattinson movie, is they are all gritty and grounded in reality because Batman is the closest thing to reality. And as soon as you inject that fantastical elements and now there's aliens who shoot lasers out of their eyes, he becomes less interesting. And so I can't imagine the quality of DCEU is making superhero movies. It's going to be action figures running into each other just like Marvel, right? And Zack Snyder tried to go away from that unsuccessfully. And I really feel like what Reeves did with Batman, like deep down, was what Snyder wanted to do. But at the end of the day, you have to have Superman, right? Because it's DC and he's one of the like main people, the holy trinity, if you will, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And so when you have Superman, everything else just becomes not as interesting because he could just come in, laser eye, fly, get blown up by a nuclear missile, and heal because of the sun. Like all this stuff, it just doesn't matter anymore. And so unless I think that part of the reason the Suicide Squad thing worked was because whereas the Heirs one had like, the chick with the shit in her mouth that was like she's possessed by a voodoo demon or whatever. And and the James Gunn one had, Harley Quinn's a nut job. Bloodsport and Peacemaker are just really good shots. Like, even though there was a giant kaiju at the end, giant starfish kaiju, like, it was more or less like realistic up until that point.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of what works, is like relatable characters. No one in the world can relate to Superman. Like, no one. No one can relate to Superman. We can relate to Clark Kent. And so and that was, I think, a big part of the problem too, was there wasn't enough Clark Kent in that stuff. It was all just Superman.
You went Breton way. There's a Superman story that can be written, but it's a Clark Kent movie.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is that's okay. It's okay to not have him in the cape. I think that'd be awesome, actually, to deal with something where it's, you look at the Iron Man movies that started.
Iron Man 3, you read my mind. Iron Man 3 is a Tony Stark movie.
Yeah, it's a Tony Stark movie, and it's great. It's a great movie. And I mean, honestly, you can look at like Civil War, and you can look at Winter Soldier. Those are like psychological movies about like everything else is kind of in there. And like, yeah, there's some punches thrown, of course, but I would love to see that. I honestly, like, I'm not, you and I are in the same boat with Superman. I mean, I grew up wearing the cape and stuff as a kid because Superman's cool. I mean, there was ideas like a kid, Superman's cool, but I would love to see just like, that's why like Lois and Clark was such a cool thing, or like even Smallville. That show was really popular. That show was on for like 200 years. It felt like it was on. Yeah, it was on for a really long time. And why don't we do that? I would love to see a trilogy of Superman where it's like, yes, he is Superman, but he's Clark Kent. He's dealing with life and that struggle. There is, because we can all deal with that. We can all deal with that struggle, and he still would deal with the day-to-day, the relationship and stuff like that. I think there's a Superman movie out there that, honestly, not kidding, there's something out there written, or that could be written, that could be honestly like Oscar worthy, because that is a powerful storyline of someone that is, yes, he's a god, but he's trapped on Earth. And that is powerful. That is literally that, in a way that's almost like the story, like a biblical story. And what he has to do and die on essentially die on the cross of like being this thing. And I know I'm getting like in a weird way, but that is what Superman is. Superman is kind of the idea of Jesus. I mean, and I think there's something there that could be honestly very powerful, and honestly could be something that no one's been done. It could actually end up being the best comic book movie ever made. I actually think there's a route. I truly believe that there is a route where something like that could be done if getting in the right hands, and not people worrying about like all the bucks, but worrying about having a story that works and means something, where Superman could be actually this allegory of Christ, but with a super human person in it. I think it would be awesome. I'm not, I would like to be the person that could do it. I would love to have that in my head where I could do something like that and write that storyline, because Superman is that. His actual storyline is kind of that thing, because he dies and he comes back and he saves humanity. There's something there about that, and I would love to see it, but we have yet to see it. But I think it would be powerful. I really do. I truly believe that.
I think that they would benefit from potentially adapting, and it doesn't sound like they're going to. Well, actually, I mean, to read the description, they're talking about how this is not an origin story, and it's him balancing his Kryptonian heritage with how he was brought up. And I think that one of the things about Man of Steel that did work for me was that it did show more of the relationship with John Kent, his father, played by Kevin Costner, who I'd take him as a stepdad. you know.
I love Kevin. I take him as my real dad any day of the week.
But I think that
I love Kevin Costner. So
I think that if you remember towards the end of Kill Bill Volume 2, David Carradine gave the whole monologue about how Superman, like Clark Kent, is his critique on Americans or on humans.
Yeah.
That's, I feel like, the direction they actually have to lean in. A good comic run to potentially lean into there would be like American Alien, which was a Max Landis written. He's kind of a piece of shit, but but like that's a really good arc. It's actually the only Superman arc that I've ever read that at the end I was like, that wasn't bad. But that's what I would like to see. Is I think people, and this the problem with Henry Cavill Superman vis-a-vis Zack Snyder's Superman is that they wanted to make a grittier Superman, or they wanted to make a darker in tone Superman. But I think that you don't necessarily do that by just like having him fight against Batman and wear a dark Superman cape or suit. I think that a grittier Superman comes from just having less Superman and have it be more about Clark Kent and the struggles that he is, like you said, he's a god under all of this. And how does he manage that on just a day-to-day basis? And how does he, like you said, and there was a scene that was kind of evokes a little bit of what you're talking about, where he saves the people. I think it's in Mexico during Batman v Superman. They're all dressed like the Day of the Dead celebration or whatever, and they're all kind of like surrounding him, putting their hands on him and everything.
It's a great scene.
It is a great scene. It's a goosebump scene just visually, right? Nothing even has to go with it. It's just visually, it's like,
it's great.
It hits. And that's the sort of thing that I, like you said, I think they need to lean into, like putting him up against just any regular antagonist at the end is just not going to be that interesting, because we know what the outcome is going to be. And he's going to use his brute strength, his laser eyes, his, all these different things he has. I think that's what makes Batman more interesting, is just that Batman at the end of the day is just a dude with toys. Where does he get all these wonderful toys? Right?
What's your superpower? I'm rich.
And it's interesting to see, like, how's he going to figure this out? How's he going to put it all together? What's the plan going to be? And that's the part that I kind of liked about Batman v Superman is that this is a foe that I cannot physically beat. So I have to figure it out. And he figures it out. And, the Batman film with Pattinson, the Reeves film, where he is more detective, like, it's just kind of like, that's what and I said this to you walking out of the Dark Knight when we saw it on the midnight show up in Meadville. It was, I could have watched Batman and the Joker go round and round. I could have watched that for 8 more hours.
Oh yeah.
Those two going round and round around each other. And
like
I just
a
don't
poker
think
match,
well, like two grandmasters playing chess.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's missing with every other DC character. There's just nothing. Like, I get the Wonder Woman slant, and I really, really liked the first Wonder Woman movie. I really liked it. The second one
movie,
was not as good. It was average at best. But like Aquaman, I don't care. Like, he's not, to me, not an interesting story. Like you said earlier, the Flash is like, whatever. He's fast. He has to eat a lot to maintain his caloric
Sounds
intake.
awesome.
That part I could use in my day-to-day.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just think as long as I think where I'm at to end this is, I just feel like as long as they have these Elseworld projects that are going to be better than the main canon line, they're going to have problems.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one thing that Marvel has avoided, in part with the fact that the only things with Marvel characters outside of the MCU have been the 2 Venom movies that did well, like commercially. I mean, the one was released during pandemic, so not as much. They did well commercially, but they both panned critically. And then fucking Morbius, which was, so I think that as long as they continue to have these outside things, they're going to struggle, regardless of who's in charge.
I think for me is that Superman's greatest foe is himself. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's the human struggle. And until they really embrace that, they're never going to be able to do it right. And I truly believe that, because even like at the end of the day, your greatest enemy is in the mirror.
Yep.
And they haven't been able to do that. And so I hope they do. I've talked about personally writing a script for something, and I don't know what. Maybe it is. Maybe I write the Oscar-winning Superman movie. I doubt it. I put the odds against me because I don't have a lot of backstory with Superman. That would be my number one fault. But that is I honestly think that's the route they need to do, because I think it could be interesting. Would it be something that makes $900 billion or, at the office? I don't know. But would it change the course of what people think? I think so. If it's a movie that makes sense. At the end of the day, I think Batman movies can be good no matter what.
The Schumacher movies are bad.
Well, the thing I'll say about the Schumacher movies is they're fun. At the end of the day, they're fun.
I don't have
because
a lot of
they're
fun.
so bad. Because they're so bad, they're kind of fun.
When was the last time you watched the first 10 minutes of Batman and Robin?
Janie and I watch those movies every year because she loves how bad they are.
The ice skating scene.
Yeah, she loves how bad they are, so we watch them.
Bad, man.
It's real bad. I'm not disagreeing how bad they are, but there's at least that fun. That's the ham part of all this. But I think there's something out there, and I think the best thing you can do with Batman is to leave him out of it and let. You know what I mean? No, what I mean is do what they're doing. The Pattinson movies off to the side or whatever. Let Batman be his own entity. And then, because he's too big to be in anything else. It's literally that kind of thing. Like, you can't put him in anything else.
I agree with you, but any iteration of the Justice League that does not have Batman in it is just not going to work.
Don't do the Justice League. Because who cares about the rest of those characters?
Well, that's the thing, is who cares about any of these characters? Why do any of it?
Well, yeah.
I mean, well, that's not true.
At the end of the day,
I guess we're biased, right? I think we're biased.
I think we are biased, but if you're an actual Flash fan, like that's your guy, that's your number one person, drop us a comment.
Yeah, seriously. Well,
I'm not trying to shit on you or anything. I'm like, I just want to know why, like, that character in particular, not the movies, the comic book version of the Flash.
Yeah. Because I think part of it is like,
I grew up getting all these comic books, all of them, Marvel, DC combo pack. Give me all of them, and the Flash is just, there's nothing there.
It's just like, it's when you're a kid. Right? That's when all this shit starts, is when you're a kid.
Right.
And so I feel like you gravitate towards the things that look cool or make sense. Right? Batman looks cool regardless.
Yeah.
He's the Dark Knight.
Look at the guy behind you. Look at him.
Yeah. I mean, he looks
That's cool as hell.
Calling him a king. But like you gravitate towards characters that you find, visually appealing, relatable in some way, or, some combination of the two. And Batman looks cool. And then once you get into his backstory and you realize that dude's gone through some shit. Like
Right.
that's relatable. People like teenagers relate to Spider-Man because he's a shitty kid.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He's just a shithead kid who's just sarcastic all the time. That's why everybody loves Spider-Man.
And his uncle died. And he has no
Well,
parents.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like this whole thing where
but
it's like,
like,
holy shit.
and
Like
he looks like the
other
colors, and like you can wrap your head around. Okay, he's Spider-Man. He has the powers of a spider.
yeah.
Cool, just thinking, I'll tell you what, every kid that I've ever worked with in my day job who has anger problems loves the Hulk. It's
Yep.
relatable,
Yep.
and so it's just one of those things. And I feel like when I'm looking at the DC characters outside of Batman, there's not a lot of the heroes there that are like, they're very generic. And I just feel like, because a lot of them are very old. And
Yeah,
so
they're
this
very
shit
old.
was
Yep.
novel. Like when it came, the
Detective
Flash, he's
comics in the
just like,
40s. Yeah.
yeah, the Flash is really fast. Tell me more in 1960. But now it's like, we've had 15 different characters like that. And if I didn't get into them when I was 9, I'm not going to get into them when I'm 39. You know what I mean? And so I guess that's my, like, not to, like, this is all very surface level. We don't have the history. You and I have the history outside of Batman with a lot of these other characters. We just don't.
Right. Yeah.
And but I am curious to find, and I don't mean this as like a DC versus Marvel thing, but I am curious to find, like, okay, Superman's your favorite character. Explain to me, help me understand that. And I don't mean like, oh, help me understand, you're so dumb. I'm like, legitimately help me understand,
Yeah, right.
like, what is appealing to you about Superman, because my mind's always open. You know what I mean? And if you can give me a compelling case why, the Flash, or I actually do like Green Arrow too. I've read some of his stuff. He's
I
kind of
like
cool.
Green Arrow. You're
And I
right.
think
Green Arrow is
part
cool.
of it is, who's he most similar to? Batman.
Batman.
So I think that, because Green Arrow is way cooler than Hawkeye. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Because, and this is the other thing, is there's a facsimile of every character in both universes, right? There's the Flash, there's Quicksilver, there's Namor, there's Aquaman, there's Wonder Woman, there's not Wonder Woman, there's, you know what I mean? It's Scarlet
Miss
Witch.
Marvel.
I don't know. Miss Marvel, sure.
Miss Marvel.
Captain Marvel, whatever. Captain Marvel, Superman, it's all relative, and they're all basically just ripping off each other. But you know who's Marvel's never ripped off? They never ripped off Batman. You know who DC's never ripped off? They've never ripped off Spider-Man. And there's a reason for that. Because you're not going to make, there is no, and so, like, I guess that's my thing. I grew up reading Marvel, dabbled in DC here and there. I read X-Men, I read Spider-Man. I didn't fuck around with the Avengers that much, honestly. It was all X-Men and Spider-Man, and then Batman. And so, like, I would be interested if a compelling case could be made from the standpoint of the comics. And I know there's some dope Justice League comics. I know there's some really good runs.
Oh yeah.
And I know there's I just like I said, American Alien, there's really good runs of everything, right? You just have to find them. But I'm not, if it's the exception rather than the rule, then I'm not interested. And that's what I feel like with American Alien. To me, it's the exception, not the rule. It's a good run of Superman. But most of the time, it's anything else I've read of Superman is just not that interesting. Whereas I could name you 40 good runs of Batman. I got 20 of them sitting behind me. And it's like,
most runs of Batman are good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like, okay, I know that, like I said, I know there's cool runs of stuff, and like, what are we drawing on is the other thing, because Justice League, they're going to make a Justice League movie. If they want to make the best Justice League movie, they would make Tower of Babel, but they won't, because they're not going to overpower Batman. And I think that's part of it, is like, okay, what is the source material? What are we drawing on most heavily from? And I think that they're facing an uphill battle in that regard, because I think that they've, Batman v Superman was pretty close to Dark Knight Returns in some aspects. And I don't know, man. I just don't know. Just to, not to belabor the point any further, we've gone on with this longer than I anticipated, but I still think at the end of the day, they just need to get rid of the other stuff. If they want this
Yeah,
to be successful, they can't allow there to be outside projects that are going to be better. And
yeah,
that's
I agree.
where that's where the hurdles are going to be. So, media recommendations.
My number one is the show. It's not like number one in my heart, but there's a show called Cunt's Earth,
Whoa.
and it's this comedic twist on like the history of the world. It's hilarious. I mean, it's like one of these like beats per minute, laughs per second kind of thing where like it's really hard to stop laughing. She she hits jokes so consistently, and she's interviewing like actual professors of history, different, theological people, all this stuff. And it's so funny. Cut on Earth. It's so
What's it on?
funny. Netflix.
On
It's
Netflix?
just incredible. They're like 27-minute episodes, and like it's factual. She
Yeah,
makes
sure.
jokes and stuff, but then she interviews people, and they're like, "Well, it's not that," but and so that's really funny. Trying to think what else we have watched. I mean, it's kind of beat around. I'll go with the book I'm currently reading. It's a big book. It's called Apollo's Angels. It's
Mhm.
about the history of ballet, which I find fascinating. I like the history of like anything. This was named the top 10 book of the year by the New York Times in 2010 when the book came out. When I finally was able to get it. I like ballet. I do actually like ballet. I find these are like true like just absolute athletes doing something, which is really cool. And I love athletic events, but it's also a thing where it's like kind of dying out. And this book talks about this, but then the history of it. And the first chapter is on French, and the second chapter is on Russian, which I'm on right now.
Oh, the
Oh,
French.
the French. It's fascinating though, because you get that mix of like what this is actually part of the culture. So if you're into like deep historical dives, which I love. Obviously, I love this. Uh, I'm all in. It's a book though. It's 550 pages, but it reads like 1,000 plus. Not a lot of gaps, and she writes chapters. The first chapter is 56 pages, and
Mhm.
there's a 20-page prologue. So 75 pages before you're like deep diving into it. So it's really really good. And she's a former
Miss
ballet
America.
person.
Oh,
I know. So it's very good. And then I will also just say, if you are in teaching, look up anything about hip hop and pedagogy, just anything.
oh, and
It's
teaching. I thought you
really,
said impeaching,
oh,
like we were gonna.
no, I don't care about that. Teaching.
Okay.
I am personally in grad school. You have done it. Uh,
Yeah.
I find it super fascinating. I'll read just kind of about anything. I really will. And when you talk about hip hop, which is, for me, one of my favorite genres of culture, it's not just music. I think people confuse it with just being music. It's a culture.
Yeah.
I really like it. And then to integrate that into schools, and a lot of this is dealing with Los Angeles schools because of the school I'm attending via Zoom, which is in Los Angeles, Loyola Marymount. It's really, really interesting. And I would just suggest looking it up on YouTube. You'll find a lot of videos. It's really cool. It's honestly fascinating. I know it sounds nerdy, and it is. It's actually very nerdy, but I really, really like it. I think I would like it even if I wasn't teaching, because I like this idea of telling kids different ideas of things to relate to them because of where they're at. Like math is important, not just because it does this or this, but because it relates to this part of society. And like one thing was these kids grew up in a really urban society, and they were concerned because there were so many liquor stores in their urban area, and their teacher was like, well, why don't you count how many are within this distance from the school, and then we'll take a bus trip, we'll check out the suburban area and count this area to this school, and they're obviously a lot more closer to the urban school than the suburban school. And they went to city council and they presented this actual data to them with facts and numbers and stuff. And I thought that was so cool. Like, I mean, my goal, hopefully for me, is I want to teach math in high school, and because I love that and I love this idea, and it brought out a whole world to me of things. So, uh, even if you're not interested in teaching at all, I think it's very, very cool. So pedagogy, mathematics, hip hop, stuff like that. Just search those words. You'll find something really, really cool.
Just to clarify one thing, it's Cunk, C-U-N-K, on Earth.
I'm sorry, Kunk. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
not
You know what happened
not
is I
cunt.
typed it and
Yeah,
it came out, but
yeah,
it's
Kunk,
sort of the
and
similar thing.
she's
Kunk. I'm
from
sorry.
Afterlife. She
Yeah, she
plays.
is from Afterlife. Yeah,
She's
sorry.
in Afterlife. She's
It's
very
the way
funny.
it typed it out, and so
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
those autocorrects.
Well,
We just started watching it like literally last night before I went to bed,
yeah,
so
I'll
I typed it
probably.
very
I
quickly.
actually think I'll
You would
probably.
love it, my
Yeah, I'll
friend.
get into
I
that.
think you would love it. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll definitely get into that actually, because like I said, she's very funny. I think I've seen some previews for it and be like, "Ha,"
it's so
that sort of
funny.
thing. The only media that I have to recommend, honestly, is ours. We've put out this week a lot of long form content. I consider at this point our Last of Us reviews as long form content because they're all
Sure.
45 minutes or longer. We did, I'm doing a playthrough with the series episode by episode. I'm hoping to get my episode 3 out before episode 4 premieres on HBO. Huge differences there. And then we also on our gaming, I guess that's on the gaming side of things as well, but the Gamescast, the BX Gamescast, the BXG Gamescast, whatever you want to call it. We're working title. Charles and I released a video. It's not audio because it's meant to be viewed as a video. Hogwarts Legacy, which is the Harry Potter, the game that takes place in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter that releases next Friday. We took a long look at the history of Harry Potter in games, the history of the studio developing the game itself. We talked a lot about the controversy surrounding the game as it relates to J.K. Rowling's and some other people sort of involved in the controversy. And then for the last 15 minutes, we did kind of dive into like an extended gameplay trailer, and we kind of broke things down from there. So like I said, it's long form. I'm actually really proud of that video. I think that it turned out really well. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. Even if you're not into games, I think that the conversation around this game is it's toxic, the conversation around this game. And I think that we did get into that to a certain degree. And we also like when this is the thing that I like about when Charles and I get together is we're not just going, oh man, Doom is great. We do a good job of giving context, giving backstory, giving sort of a more of an educational side to the games industry that a lot of people might not know about, because personally, I think that he and I have a very deep knowledge of this. And so but other than that, I haven't done it. I've just been making videos all week, basically. So
Yeah, you've been hard at work. I have
some would say
honestly,
hardly
other than what
working.
I could recommend, I've just been doing a lot of school stuff, and it's
Oh,
a lot. It's a
yeah,
lot of stuff. Grad school isn't hard.
it's not.
It's a lot, but it's a
It
lot
wasn't
of
for me. It wasn't a lot.
reading, and that's the thing with me is like,
Only if you read every word.
well, I will say
4.0
I like.
in my grad school. So
Well, I'm not, and that's and I'll probably. I mean, honestly, my grades. I'm not worried about my grades. I actually. Well, one thing for me is like I am hoping to like go pretty far
but
with like my educational thing, and like so I want to like understand a lot of these concepts so that when I become something bigger than what I'm doing is like I can actually talk about these. Uh Boy, it's a lot of reading though. It's a lot of reading.
Yeah, I didn't read shit. But here's what I'll
That's
tell
fine.
you. Here's what I'll tell
I
you.
like
Well,
reading.
every program's different, right? And so
Right.
like I didn't have to read
Where did you get
Edinburgh.
yours? Okay, that's a good
Edinburgh,
school.
which is a reputable teaching school in
Yeah, no, it's a
PA.
great school.
And yeah. But it was comically easy. And there was a guy at my work that was doing the same program, and he was like, all of his essays were getting ripped to shreds. And I'm like, that you have to be illiterate then, because
There is that. I mean, I
I'm going to be honest with you, and I mentioned it, and then you texted me the one day. Um, my my writing style when it comes to like writing research papers or whatever from the time of late high school through grad school was baffle them with bullshit. And it's worked. It works. It works.
I
If you
and I
just write everything you know about the topic,
yeah,
they can't take anything away from you, because at the end of the day, a research paper is just a modified test. Whether
yeah,
you like it or
yeah.
not, that's what it is. Facts. Come at me, bro.
I
And so now it's like, okay, prove this point. It's like, okay, well, I have all this information to prove this point. So I'm going to give you all this information.
give all the info. Yep.
I'm just going to write everything that I know, which is considerable. I'm a smart guy. But here's the thing about going to grad school and getting a master's degree and then not using it for anything that is useful. Do you know where all my money is? It's gone.
Toilet.
Oh, hold on.
No, I
I think I
mean
quit sharing. Hold on, here. Do you know where my money is?
in a toilet.
It's
Oh,
gone.
Yep.
so my long-term plan is to stay in academia, but be not a teacher. Uh, so
Oh, I'd love to
that's
be a researcher. I'd love to do
well.
research.
There's positions here in high schools where you just set what the curriculum is, and
Yeah,
it's like a
sure.
whole
Well, yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. Curriculum,
And not all like
curriculum
not like
coordinator,
small high schools and stuff have it, but like big high schools have that
districts.
and stuff like
Yeah.
it.
No, they have
Big
that here
districts.
too, to some extent.
Yeah, it's not as common. It's
Yeah.
not as common. Like like just schools will have that here. Districts have it where
Yeah.
where we live because
Well,
it's
and it's
different
a
sizes.
lot of the times you'll have like department chairs here. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm the department chair of the English department. I'm gonna, be the curriculum
yeah.
coordinator or whatever. But
That's
all
my
right, you
goal.
know
I want
what?
to be one of those people, and
You
so
know what?
that's why I read a lot.
Okay.
But
Well,
read a lot. I'll tell everyone. Here's your thing. Just read a lot. It's fun to read. It is fun to read.
let's
Read
get out
anything.
of
I'm
here.
not can't be judged on anything. Read whatever you want.
Yeah. Let's get out of here.
Do
BXG
it.
Productions, Instagram, BXG Productions, youtube.com/at BXG Productions, Twitter at BXG Productions, Facebook.com/BXG Productions, every Friday at 9 a.m. and other days too, sometimes. Not as much
Yeah.
though. Oh, we didn't talk about this. I almost wanted to do like a voiceover thing at the front. We need a guest. We did a guest appearance on Neighbors Don't Knock. It was awesome. I had a great time. Brian and
I
Philip,
also had a great time,
awesome
from
guys.
what I'm told. I
You did?
actually no, I had a great time. The thing I will
I was
say
just say
when
you
I
didn't.
guest
It seemed
appear,
like you did.
no. When
Yeah.
I guest appear on things, I go into a mode and I don't
Sure.
know what happens.
Yeah.
Like
that's
I can
fine.
remember word for word what we do in our episode, but when
Yeah.
I appear on someone else's episode, especially one where we had no idea what was going on until we were on it,
Right.
it seemed awesome. And that's coming out the same day as this episode. So
Well, let me tell
yeah.
you, let me give you some of the highlights of yourself.
Sure.
Living in Alaska made you want to slit your wrists.
Sure. I said that before. Makes sense.
Your neighborly advice was, if you live in a community with an HOA, was don't snitch.
Yeah, I always say that too. This makes sense.
And that eventually you're going to be the HOA
Spoiler alerts.
president.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoiler alerts. Outside of that, you did real bad on a game that had us play.
I'm not. Well, I prefaced one of the worst things I am at that, unless it's American Psycho.
Yeah, well,
It's just not a thing. It's so weird because I love music and I love movies, but
sure.
when I'm watching a movie, I'm like,
I didn't
you
do
can
so
tell
hot
me.
either, to be honest with you. So
I will say, in fairness to us,
a lot of
I
those
don't
were
think
older
that's an
movies
easy.
too.
Older, but I also just don't think that's an easy thing to do
Yeah.
because you associate those with the feeling of the movie. Am I wrong? And I'm
Well,
not
there's
saying those
certain
guys.
ones that are there's certain movie scores where you know it instantly, right?
Yeah,
Star
I got
Wars,
one of
Indiana
those.
Jones, Jurassic Park, Superman theme song, Batman 89. These are just off the top of my head. Jaws, right? Obviously Jaws, but I think for the most part,
I'm not good with plot.
the music in movies is additive, but it has to be damn near transcendent to be memorable
Yeah,
like that. You know what I mean? I mean, he gave, I can't remember if it was you or me. I think it was me. He
I
gave
got
me Andy.
Psycho. I'm not good at that.
Yeah. Is Psycho. I got Psycho. I knew that.
I've seen that movie one time my entire life, and it was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. It's a
18,
good movie, but I just
Goonies. I can't
Goonies.
remember.
I've seen once too, 20
Godfather.
years ago.
He
You
gave
got
you,
Godfather.
yeah, he gave you Indiana Jones. I was like,
I got Indiana Jones.
yeah. Which
I didn't even hear the first two beats of it. That was weird.
if you'd have gotten that one wrong, I
You
might have
guys,
come through the
everyone else
computer
is like
screen.
nodding along. It's like I can't hear anything. So I thought
Oh, okay.
I thought like something weird was happening, but
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
anyway, yeah, Neighbors
Yeah,
Don't
it's a
Knock.
good
It
take.
comes
This is a
out.
good preview. Like, yeah, check it out. It's
Yeah.
fun.
No, yeah,
Those
I had a
guys are
great time.
great.
Yeah. I'll tell you what.
Great crew.
Um uh, Somehow neither one of them are radio hosts, but with their voices, they both should be. Because
Does
Brian
it
sounds
Phil?
like, yeah, Brian sounds like he could do like a really good Casey Kasem.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and the best song of 1985 was, he's got that vibe. And
yeah.
then Phil just is smooth jazz, man.
Phil is like literally. I want to drive home. Just
Yeah,
send me away. Send
right.
me away. Like I probably drive past my exit if Phil's
Yeah, I'll tell
hosting a
you
jazz
what,
night.
his voice is so smooth. I could just see him playing a stand-up bass
Yeah.
and just like narrating, just like talking about life, you know?
I
I went
almost
down to
felt
the
like
grocery store.
I think he may have gotten comfortable with my adoration of it, but I love a good voice.
Oh no,
Like
that's the
I
first
have,
thing when I listened to them when we
yeah.
started chatting with them, I was like, damn, this guy. Wow. He
I have
has
a distinct voice.
Oh
I
yes, you
don't like
do.
my I don't dislike my voice because I think my voice is like it's different. It sounds like what it is. I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, I hate listening to myself. I actually don't. I know what my voice sounds like. My voice in my head doesn't sound any different than when I hear it. It's very
Yeah,
nasally. I get that.
right.
But like this guy, man,
Yeah. I've been
send
told
me
by some of
away
our
to
listeners
Mars.
that I have a good podcast voice, but I don't know that I agree.
Well,
I think I'm
I
real
would say
monotone. That's
what I would say about you, Brenton, is I am a fast speaking person and you're
yeah,
a slower speaking person.
right.
And I try to slow it down, but like I do so much cocaine before we get on this spot. I just
Yeah,
slip that in because we didn't mention cocaine. I'm yeah. It's hard for me to slow down.
right. Yeah, that it is. Okay. Yeah, so Neighbors Don't Knock. Listen to their back catalog too.
It's good.
It's a good
Yeah, they're
show.
good
It's
at
a good
yeah.
show.
It's really funny.
So you definitely check that out. And be on the lookout for us on other shows. We got something else cooked up for March. So we'll be going somewhere in
March
March.
Madness.
Yeah, a little bit of
Yeah,
March
we're actually
Madness.
going to the Final Four. We're
We're
going to be
not.
there live and in person. Oh,
We aren't. Okay. Take care.
thanks for watching
Thanks for watching and listening.
and listening.
Have a great rest of your day.